Okay, well this morning, as we're getting started, I want to draw your attention to something that I think has enormous potential prophetic implications. As a matter of fact, it is something that just took place, just about 5 days ago, if you can believe. And to this point, it has received very little international media attention. But I want you to know about it because I think it's very, very significant, particularly for believers as we are racing, I believe, towards the last days. So this Flashpoint Geoprophecy update is connected to an announcement of the EastMed Pipeline project. The EastMed Pipeline project. Med short for Mediterranean. So the Eastern Mediterranean Pipeline project. Now I'm going to give you a little bit of context, a little bit of background regarding this significant announcement that just took place 4 or 5 days ago. Israel discovered, back in about 2009, they discovered natural gas in a significant quantity. They had discovered some deposits earlier than that, but in a significant quantity, Israel discovered natural gas in 2009, and they named that gas field the Tamar field, the Tamar gas field. This was about 60 miles off of the Israeli coast in the northern city of Haifa. So in northern Israel, you have the city of Haifa. It is a significant port city for Israel. And about 60 miles to the west, out in the Mediterranean, they discovered this large natural gas deposit and called it the Tamar field. And that started producing natural gas in about the year 2013. Now I want you to stick with me because the issues are very significant. First of all, you should know that the world is moving toward the use of natural gas in a very significant way. Of course, oil is still very important, crucially important, but the world is moving to natural gas because of the benefits that natural gas has. It is becoming more abundant in terms of discoveries. And also it's a cleaner burning fuel. And so there has been a move towards natural gas really worldwide. Some of the biggest discoveries of natural gas are in the Persian Gulf up until this point. And they are shared by the country of Qatar, Q-A-T-A-R, and Iran. That large natural gas discovery in the Persian Gulf is shared by those two countries. And of course, they're both Arab Muslim nations, so that becomes a tricky sticking point as it relates to how that natural gas is distributed throughout the world. Now, Qatar, which is a small country, kind of a peninsula adjacent to Saudi Arabia that juts out into the Persian Gulf. Qatar is a very, very wealthy Arab nation. Qatar also had oil, and Qatar just last week announced that they are no longer going to be part of OPEC, which is the major oil consortium that is really driven and controlled by Saudi Arabia and some other nations, but primarily Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia and Qatar are at odds with each other. Okay? There's a big reason why, and it's connected to the Muslim Brotherhood, but we won't get into that, get too far afield from what we want to talk about today. But you should know that Qatar has decided to really abandon its relationship with Saudi Arabia and OPEC altogether, not focus on oil, but focus on natural gas because they have that in abundance and it has made them very, very wealthy. So they are focusing on bumping up their natural gas production in this large field that it shares with Iran. One of the reasons that Qatar is doing that is because there are other nations that have come online with natural gas to supply much of the world's needs. And Qatar does not want to get left behind in that situation. Australia, believe it or not, has become the world's largest natural gas producer, and the United States is just about to catch up to Qatar, the country we were just talking about in the Persian Gulf in the Middle East, in its production of natural gas as well. However, there's still a major demand, and as the world needs for natural gas increase, so does the demand for new discoveries, And just because there is a discovery of natural gas doesn't mean that that country can get that natural gas to market. So it's not just do you discover the natural gas, it's how do you supply it to the countries that need it. Now, this is where geopolitics comes into play, and I think Bible prophecy in a very significant way. Israel discovered in 2009 a large deposit of natural gas in the Mediterranean called the Tamar Field. However, in 2010, they discovered a much larger field close to the Tamar Field, also in Israel's Mediterranean Sea territory, and they named that the Leviathan Field. Leviathan Field. This was a major natural gas discovery that Israel came up with in concert with an American oil company called Noble Energy. So Israel and Noble Energy worked together to develop the Leviathan Field. The Leviathan Field is about to become productive in 2019. Okay? But the issue has been, since the discovery, how does Israel get the natural gas to market, primarily to Europe? Europe needs its natural gas demands met by several sources. Right now, most of their demand is being met by Russia, which is a big supplier to Europe. But what happens when your hand is out to Russia for energy supplies? They make demands, they make requirements. And so Europe is essentially beholden to much of what Russia says, in large measure, which is a national security concern for America. Because we don't want Europe making decisions in Russia's interest. We want them making decisions based on what we think is best for the world. So, but Europe is dependent right now on Russian energy. There is another pipeline that comes from the country of Azerbaijan, because they have discovered significant quantities of oil, natural gas, and they have just agreed to run a pipeline from Azerbaijan through the area of Turkey, and from Turkey to Europe. So that's another source that they have. Iran, of course, was a major supplier as well, but there are sanctions being placed on Iran. So the Europeans have to find other sources of oil and energy and natural gas. Enter Israel into the mix and their major discovery of the Tamar Field and the Leviathan Field. Now, how does Israel get its natural gas out of the Mediterranean Sea and to Europe? Europe invested $100 million since the discovery of Leviathan Field to research and do a feasibility study on how can Israel get its natural gas to Europe via a pipeline in the Mediterranean Sea. This was the proposed route. You can see from where Israel discovered off of its coast. You can see the H, the H represents Haifa, okay? The northern port city of Haifa in Israel. B is generally the area where they discovered their natural gas fields, Tamar and Leviathan Field. Cyprus also has discovered some smaller fields, and they want to get in on the action. And I'll tell you about some new discoveries in a few moments as well. So the proposed plan is to run from B, which is where the natural gas fields are, to the island of Crete, which is a Grecian island, and from there to run a pipeline to the mainland of Greece, up to the island of Corfu, which is, you may have heard, is a beautiful resort island in that area, and across to Italy, to Otranto, Italy, okay? Which is also close to another city that has pipelines coming into it from Turkey, Brindisi in Italy, okay? So that's the route. This route was just approved and a deal was just done 4 to 5 days ago. A $7 billion deal to build this natural gas pipeline from Israel's reserves to Italy and eventually to all of Europe. This is very, very significant. Now, it will be the longest natural gas pipeline on the face of the earth. It will be the deepest natural gas pipeline on the earth and one of the most expensive on earth. And one of the challenges, there are big challenges, one of the challenges in the feasibility study that they determined is between Cyprus south of Cyprus, and where Israel has found its reserves, to the island of Crete are large volcanic fields in the depths of the ocean. It's a big volcanic area. So the pipeline has to run through these undersea volcanic fields over to the island of Crete and then up. This is very, very significant. Now, the nations involved are Israel, Cyprus, the island of Cyprus, Crete, which is part of Greece, and Italy. Those are the nations. Are any of those nations Islamic?
No.
No. None of them are Islamic. And that's probably the reason that Europe, in the deal, said that they will give Israeli natural gas priority over all other sources of natural gas. This is going to, and probably has already, riled up the Arab world, because they have for decades controlled most of the energy in the world. Also, Russia cannot be very happy about this because they are supplying Europe with a lot of energy. And as Europe moves away from oil into natural gas and looks to diversify and wants to get it from Israel, this becomes very significant. So you can see that the entire Arab world, who is involved in energy production and oil production and natural gas production, will be threatened by this discovery and by this pipeline. But what it does for Europe is it allows Europe to step away and to not owe as many favors, to not look as favorably upon or look the other way when the Arab world is doing things that it doesn't agree with in support of Israel. So it is a very, very significant situation. Now, I want to mention to you one more discovery. It's not on the map. South of B, and one other thing while we're talking about Cyprus. You can see Cyprus is divided into two. Essentially, Cyprus is almost two countries. The northern portion of Cyprus is connected with Turkey, and Turkey has dominance over northern Cyprus, Islamic. The southern portion of Cyprus is really dominated by the Greeks. It's Greek Cypriot, or Greek Cyprus. So the southern portion of Cyprus is who Israel is working the deal with, because that's where the pipeline will run, in their territorial waters, not northern Cyprus, which Turkey is engaged with. So Turkey is even more upset about this because they see Cyprus as all of theirs. They don't like the fact that the Greeks are controlling southern Cyprus and Israel is doing a deal with the Greeks. So, because Turkey and Greece don't like each other at all. So, very significant, a lot of geopolitics going on here. Now, I want to mention the other discovery to you, and that is south of B, in Egypt's territorial waters, has been discovered since Leviathan, since Israel made their discovery, an even larger reserve called the Zohr Field, Z-O-H-R, the Zohr Field, an even larger discovery of natural gas. So, Israel and Egypt have signed a deal to work together to share the pipeline. And there is an existing pipeline from Israel all the way down to Al Arish in Egypt, an existing pipeline that has been in disuse for some time. They're going to bring it back, and Israel will actually export its natural gas to Egypt. And then when Egypt's Zohr field comes online, Egypt will also benefit in this regard as well. And Egypt will take Israel's natural gas, and they have a deal to supply it to Jordan. So you can see that Israel is becoming a centerpiece in all of this and the pipeline that Europe is doing with Israel. Now, you'd say to yourself, well, why isn't Europe doing a pipeline deal directly to Egypt since they have the bigger field? And I would surmise to you, first of all, that Israel's came online first, and that's where the emphasis has been. The Egyptian field came on a little later. But I also think that Europe, again, is very interested in having a pipeline with an energy source that comes from a non-Islamic country, which would be Israel. Very, very significant. Now, why would this be significant in terms of biblical prophecy? Because we're told, and I'll give you just one example. There's a lot of reasons. Israel stands to make a lot of money through the years on this situation. And there may be more discoveries, and I will tell you one other thing, and that is that there has, and not much has been said about it, that in the Golan Heights, which is close to Haifa, right next to the Sea of Galilee, that is a disputed area with Syria and Israel. Israel captured it, and controls it, and it's a strategic high ground, and it's important because those mountain ranges of the Golan Heights near the Sea of Galilee, the Syrians were there for years, and they were just sending missiles across the Sea of Galilee to the Israeli farm communities. So it's very important because it's the high ground. Oil was discovered by Israel in the Golan Heights. A significant quantity of oil was discovered. But right now, the Golan Heights is in dispute. Israel says it's ours, and it legitimately should be theirs and is theirs. Yes. However, you have Syria that is saying, no, this belongs to us. And the United Nations and the international community are saying, no, it's occupied territory by Israel. So Israel is not doing anything right now with its Golan Heights oil discovery, but at some point, I think they will be able to do that and utilize it, and that also will put them in a very significant spot in terms of energy production as an energy source for the world. So if Israel becomes wealthier because of these energy discoveries, and their economy continues to boom, if you saw Israel today, they have cranes all over the country. Skyscrapers are going up like you would not believe in the city of Tel Aviv. And Jerusalem is really reinventing itself in terms of the economy and so many other parts of Israel. So it is very significant that Israel become even wealthier than it is today. Now, in Ezekiel chapter 38, the context is the Antichrist arising. And I just want to read you a few verses of scripture here. The word of the Lord came to me, Son of man, set your face against Gog, I believe that's the Antichrist, of the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal. Prophesy against him and say, this is what the sovereign Lord says. I am against you, O Gog, or the Antichrist, chief prince of Meshach and Tubal. I will turn you around and put hooks in your jaws and bring you out with your whole army, your horses, your horsemen, fully armed, a great horde with large and small shields, all of them brandishing their swords. Persia, which is Iran, Cush and Put will be with them. I won't get into all the details except to tell you that I believe that Cush and Put are referring to Ethiopia, Sudan, south of Egypt, and the area of Libya. But primarily, other than those nations, the majority of countries that are with the Antichrist will be the areas of Iran and the northern Islamic republics, I believe. And when the Bible talks about Gog of Magog, the land chief prince of Meshach and Tubal, most through the years have said, well, that's probably Russia. I'm not saying 100% that it's not, but I lean towards the fact that it is the area of Turkey, the area of Turkey. So, and other portions of Scripture seem to indicate to us clearly that the Antichrist will arise in the last days. This is an individual who will rise satanically empowered, who will be against and in place of the true Jesus Christ. When he arises, the Bible tells us he will arise, I believe, from the ancient Assyrian Empire, which comprises large portions of Turkey and some of the other Islamic republics, including Syria and Iran. So when that Antichrist arises in Ezekiel 38, the Bible tells us that he's going to have a massive army, and he will be moving to the south. And the Bible tells us in Ezekiel 38:7, get ready, be prepared, you and all the hordes gathered about you, and take command of them. After many days, you'll be called to arms. In other words, the Lord is going to put in the mind of the Antichrist, I'm going to put hooks in your mouth, I'm going to draw you down for my purposes. After many days, you'll be called to arms. In future years, you will invade a land that has recovered from war, Israel, whose people were gathered from many nations to the mountains of Israel, which had long been desolate. Have we seen that take place? Amen. 1948, Israel became a modern nation once again, gathered from the nations of the world. They had been brought out from the nations, and now you, now all of them live in safety. You and all your troops and the many nations with you will go up, advancing like a storm. You will be like a cloud covering the land. This is what the sovereign Lord says. On that day, thoughts will come into your mind, and you will devise an evil scheme. This is to the Antichrist. It's being spoken. You will say, I will invade a land of unwalled villages. I will attack a peaceful and unsuspecting people, all of them living without walls and without gates and bars. I will plunder and loot and turn my hand against the resettled ruins of the people gathered from the nations. I will plunder Israel, is what it's saying. Rich in livestock and goods, living at the center of the land. So this is referring to Israel and Israel's wealth and relative comfort that it's living in peaceful situation. Listen to this next verse. Sheba and Dedan and the merchants of Tarshish and all her villages will say to you, have you come to plunder? Have you gathered your hoards to loot, to carry off silver and gold, to take away livestock and goods and seize much plunder? This is the question that's being asked. So when the Antichrist is coming down with his army into Israel, to the south, into a land of unwalled villages, living in relative peace and security with wealth, Sheba and Dedan. Do you know where Sheba and Dedan is? Sheba and Dedan is Arabia. Arabia, and all the way down probably to the area of Yemen. It's the Arabian Peninsula. Sheba and Dedan and the merchants of Tarshish. The merchants of Tarshish probably is referring to merchants and nations more from the west, the European area. So Saudi Arabia, the Arabian Peninsula, and the Gulf Emirates probably, and those from Europe, the merchants of Tarshish, the merchants from afar, are going to say to the Antichrist, are you coming down like you are into Israel to take a spoil, to take a prey, to loot? That's the question that they're asking, because that's what they're seeing take place. So what I'm suggesting to you is the things that are taking place geopolitically today very well may be moving us ever closer, and I believe they are, to the time of the emergence of the Antichrist, of his coalition of nations in the north, centered in Turkey, also including Iran and the other Islamic republics, where they will move down into Israel. Why? Because Israel is wealthy. Now, do you think, like we talked before, that Turkey is very happy about being bypassed with these natural gas discoveries and the pipeline not running through them? They're not happy at all about it. Would that potentially give them a significant reason to want to come down because they're being bypassed and all the wealth that's being created from the natural gas discoveries? It's entirely possible. So I leave you with that today. Very important that you stay attuned to what's going on in the Middle East, because the movement of these nations is very, very significant and has a lot of foreshadowing as it relates to what's coming in the last days and the return of Jesus Christ.
Go deeper in your understanding of God, His people, and His plan for planet Earth. Zion's Fire magazine is an exceptional resource with powerful insights from Scripture that provide a clear understanding of God's ultimate plan for the last days and the return of Jesus Christ. As a first-time subscriber, you'll receive a free 1-year subscription to Zion's Fire magazine with no strings attached. Request your free subscription by visiting our website or by calling our toll-free number, and we'll send you 6 free issues, one every other month, for a full year. We depend on the generosity of viewers like you to support the ongoing production of these programs. Your donation, whether large or small, is greatly appreciated. Donations may be given online at www.zionshope.org or by calling us toll-free at 1-888-781-9466. Stay informed and see the latest from Zion's Hope by liking us on Facebook, subscribing to our YouTube channel, and following us on Twitter.